Stephen Fennick from Tech Guide here, and we've got them all, the new iPhones, the iPhone 15, the iPhone 15 Plus, the iPhone 15 Pro, and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. We are going to take a deep dive into these new devices. We're going to tell you all about the new features, and if you're thinking of buying them, perhaps you should stick around and listen to what's improved, what's changed, and what you can expect with these new models. The first thing we'll talk about is the design. You can see right here, we'll start off with the 15s. This is the iPhone 15 Plus, and you can tell that is the pink color. It's available in pink, blue, yellow, green, and black. We received the pink for review for the iPhone 15 Plus, and you can tell it is a bit of a muted color. It's quite a pale pink. There is a new color bonding process that Apple is using now to apply the colors to the matte rear glass panel, and there's also the matching aluminium ring on the outside. This is the blue model. This is the iPhone 15 in blue, and again, really pale blue, almost white, I'd say. And the greens, the blacks, well, black is black, but the other colors are very, very muted, very faded colors, so they're not too garish. Over on with the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max, the biggest thing you'll notice with these designs is the fact that they now have a new titanium finish. Gone is the stainless steel, the surgical grade stainless steel, and in its place is this new titanium matte finish. So that does have a brushed metal look around the outside there, and this isn't, unlike the stainless steel on the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max was a real fingerprint magnet. So now having the titanium band means that you're not going to have any kind of trouble with that, because it is a matte finish and has that brushed metal. This is the blue titanium, and that's the iPhone 15 Pro, and the iPhone 15 Pro Max here, this is the natural titanium, which is more grey, I think. There's also black and white titanium, but you can see from their design, the brushed metal actually looks pretty good. I really like this natural color actually, and I do like the fact that the sides are brushed metal and not shiny, so there'll be no fingerprints, even though I'm going to have a cover on these anyway. But I think the new designs look great. Slight changes to you. One thing I did notice with the iPhone 15 and 15 Pro is that you can tell the thinner bezels on the outside here. So out here, so the space outside on the outside of the screen is a little bit narrower, and noticeably narrower. And basically what that's done, it's enabled Apple to create a device that has the same screen sizes, 6.1 and 6.7 inches, but they've reduced the dimensions by 1 millimeter or 2. So if you place this right next to the iPhone 14 and the iPhone 14 Pro Max, you'll notice that they are a couple of millimeters difference. Let's now turn our attention to the displays. Now they've all got the Super Retina XDR displays, but what the iPhone 15s have now inherited the dynamic island. So you'll see the last year's iPhone 14s had just had the notch, and the 14 and Pro and 14 Pro Max, that they were the ones who introduced the dynamic island. Now with the iPhone 15 and iPhone 15 Plus, you'll see now that they do have a similar dynamic island. And this is it's a clever feature that Apple uses to display notifications. So it's really, really cleverly done. And you'll notice once you start using it, you'll see, say the music you're playing, you'll see it up the top in there. If you've ordered an Uber, it'll tell you exactly how far away it is. If you want, I flew United, and the dynamic island was telling me what gate I had to go to, what seat I was assigned, how long to take off. All of that was displayed in this new dynamic island. I mentioned earlier that the 15 Pro and the 15 Pro Max do have slightly thinner bezels around the screen to sort of give it more of an edge-to-edge look. So you're getting a bigger screen in a smaller space. But overall, I think the displays, the Super Retina XDR, look amazing, but you'll notice also too, of course, the Pro models have the 120 Hertz refresh rate. So it's the ProMotion refresh rate. So that is the difference between the two displays. But overall, dynamic island across the board. Now let's talk performance. The iPhone 15s, they have inherited the A16 Bionic chip, which was seen with the iPhone 14 Pro last year. So basically, a really good way to summarize, the iPhone 15 and 15 Plus is basically now the iPhone 14 Pro. So this the same processor from the iPhone 14 Pro. The dynamic island is now on board as well. They've also upped the camera, which we'll talk a little bit more in depth a bit later. Camera is now 48 megapixels. So these are the same chips as the iPhone 14, 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max adopted. On the Pro side, they have a new A17 Pro chip, and that enables a lot of new features, including, like, if you're playing games, they've got a new ray tracing feature. So if you like playing your games, how the light appears in the game, ray tracing is what it's called in the industry. And so basically how light behaves in the game, it looks a little bit more immersive, a little bit more realistic. That is powered by the A17 Pro chip as well, along with other things like power efficiencies as well. A lot of the camera features also rely on the A17 Pro to do all the heavy lifting, but and of course performance wise it is pretty fast. It's instant switching between apps and doing all those sorts of things. So a big upgrade across the board for the processors. Let's talk about another new feature that you'll find on the 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max, and that is the action button. You'll notice it up here on the left hand side. It has replaced the switch, which is actually still part of the iPhone 15 and the 15 Plus. The switch has been around since the very first iPhone back in 2007. So that's what allows you to just mute. You can just mute your phone just with that simple switch. That has now been replaced with the action button. And the good thing about this is it's an assignable button, so you can customize what that button can actually do. So if you dive into the settings, you can then scroll through what you want it to do, whether you want to keep it to silence your phone, whether you wanted to open up the camera, set off the voice recorder, set up a favorite app. All of these things are at your fingertips now, and you do, when you press the action button, you do feel a bit of haptic feedback, so you know that you've actually pressed the button. Plus you'll also see what's happening on the screen as well. So if it's silent, for example, if you keep it at that, you'll notice that if the phone has been silenced, you'll see there is a bell with a line through it. So it does give you a little bit more control of what you do. You might want it to set it for your torch or open the calculator or whatever you do. It is up to you. The action button, new to the 15 Pro and Pro Max, but with the 15 Plus and the 15, you're stuck with the same switch. One of the biggest changes that we all predicted, we all knew that the iPhone was going to switch from a Lightning charging port to USB-C, and that is across the board. All of the new iPhones have USB-C charging port, which it's the first time in 11 years that Apple has changed the charger. So the first time we saw Lightning was actually with the iPhone 5 back in 2012. So it's been 11 years, so I don't think you can get mad at Apple for changing it. It has been around for a while, but we all know, of course, that the European Union, they said that they wanted all smartphones that were sold in Europe to have the same charging port, which at the time was going to be USB-C, because that was on all the Android phones as well. And that wasn't supposed to be enforced until 2024. So what Apple's done is they've actually dived in a year early and decided to produce put the USB-C charging ports on the iPhone 15. Now, you do get a USB-C to USB-C cable in the box, so you're able to charge the phone with that cable, of course. And how Apple described it, it's basically said that they've unified the whole range. So you'll know that the iPad already is USB-C. The MacBooks and MacBook Air also has USB-C, also known as Thunderbolt. I thought they were going to call this Thunderbolt, but Thunderbolt's kind of associated with computers and monitors, and it's like that. So I thought I may have thought they may have used that term, but they've just decided to stick to USB-C. On the Pro model, they do have on the chip actually a USB-C controller to provide 10 gigabits per second data transfer speeds. Why you'll need that, we'll let you know when we're talking about the camera. Okay, let's talk about the feature you've been waiting for, the camera. Now, iPhone cameras have been known to be excellent, and the iPhone 15 and 15 Pro continue that trend. In fact, I'll say it right now, the iPhone 15 Pro Max is probably the best camera you'll find in a smartphone. And we all know you don't buy a smartphone because it makes good phone calls or sends great text messages. The camera is huge, influencing your decision on a device, and Apple know this, that they have really put a lot of work into the new cameras on these new models. Let's talk first about the iPhone 15 and the iPhone 15 Plus. Their camera has been upgraded to a 48 megapixel camera, quad pixel. So it is basically, as I said, really taking another feature from the iPhone 14 Pro. So 48 megapixel and the computational photography. So the processor does all this work in the background to optimize your images in real time. All you need to do is hit that red button and you're going to get a great photo. Simple as that. The Pro models, of course, which we'll get into a little bit later, they are aimed at those enthusiasts who really want to take control of their photos, really want to deep dive and try things, video, all these things which we'll get to. But in terms of a feature common with all the cameras is the ability to create portraits from regular shots. So if you take a photo, the chip inside will actually do all the depth. It'll study all the depth in the photograph, and then later on allow you to go in and change the focus. So you can either first of all turn the background into a blur, and so that create a portrait out of a normal photograph, or you can actually go and edit the photo and change the focus. So I took some photos of my two Dalmatians. I actually lucky to have them sitting, one was behind the other. Ziggy was at the back, Logan at the front, and I was able actually to take a regular photo, edit and hit the edit button, and was able to choose which of the dogs I wanted to focus on. Or I could have even blurred the whole background. If there was one dog in the frame, I could have done that. So it works with, if it detects people, dogs and cats in the photo, you're able to do that. When people ask me which iPhone should I buy, the iPhone 15 or the iPhone 15 Pro, my answer always has to do with the camera. If you're a serious photographer that you enjoy taking time and taking great photographs and videos, then I would urge you to lean towards the iPhone 15 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. There are several features on the Pro, and even on the Pro Max has some exclusive features that take your photography to another level. But the Pro models have, if you're a photographer, what I like about Apple's cameras is there's no gimmickry. There's nothing that they put into the camera to try to use smoke and mirrors to pump up the quality of the photograph. We see with other brands that they do pump up the colors, and on the screen you're thinking, wow, that's the best photo I've ever taken. But Apple's are more of a purist when it comes to their cameras, and they've put a lot of work in not only the chip but also the lenses and the sensors and everything there to present you with the best possible quality. Their skin tone, natural colors. Apple has nailed it with the iPhone 15 and especially with the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max. Now there is, if you are a photographer, one feature that you'll like is it allows you to set a default focal length. So there's 24mm, 28mm and 35mm. If you wanted to, you can actually dive into the settings and have a default value. So when you turn on the camera, it will default to the focal length that you prefer. So that's rather than you having to adjust it each time to your favorite focal length that you like to begin with, you are able to set that up in the settings. Okay, let's talk about the standout feature for the iPhone 15 Pro Max camera, and that is the new TETRA PRISM lens system. So it's only included in the iPhone 15 Pro Max because I suspect it needs a bit more room to fit it in. So being a larger phone, it is exclusive to the 15 Pro Max. So basically what the TETRA PRISM does, it bounces the light 4 times to create up to 5 times optical zoom. We've seen this feature in other cameras, the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, I think even the S22 Ultra, a couple of other brands have what they call a periscope lens, which is using similar technology to bounce that light around to provide that zoom. Apple, I was hoping for more than 5x. The rumors were 6x up to 10x zoom, which would have been remarkable. Apple decided, I think, to play on the conservative side, keep it at 5x zoom. And it is a serious bit of zoom, actually. You'll see in these examples, I did test this out, and 5x zoom is way closer to your subject than 1x zoom. So it does get you closer. I would have loved a bit more, but they decided to keep it at that level. And it is all glass as well, by the way, so it recreates 120mm focal length. So if you are wanting to get closer to your subject and you have the iPhone 15 Pro Max, you are now able to do so. Now, if you are a professional photographer or an enthusiast, you really want to get your hands on those better features. Of course, the 15 Pro and of course, especially the 15 Pro Max allow you to get into those features, and that includes shooting ProRes video, ProRAW as well. A couple of interesting inclusions though, the fact that the phones are now compatible with the Academy color encoding system. This is a global color standard, so in post-production you're able to color grade your video, so it is feature film quality that you can get that was compatible with those color grading systems. The other great features, if you're a pro user, have to do with the USB-C port. Now if you connect Pro or the Pro Max to a Mac, you're able to see your photos instantly on a desktop, just like you would a normal digital SLR connected with a cable as well. You can also, if you're shooting ProRes video, which are huge files, the problem with shooting that in the past has been that you may not have enough memory for these massive files. Well, now with USB-C, you can connect an external SSD drive to the phone and shoot directly and store it on that SSD drive. So really they've taken off the limit for you. You can now record directly to the SSD drive. Price-wise, the new iPhones here in Australia are about $100 more expensive than the iPhone 14 previous models. The iPhone 15 starts at $1,499. The iPhone 15 Pro starts at $1,849. So yes, they are more expensive, but I think what's going to happen with these, who is going to buy these phones? I hear a lot of people saying, oh, it's not much of an upgrade from the 14. Well, it's a decent upgrade from the 14, but you know what? If you've got an iPhone 14, I'd recommend hanging on to that. The iPhone 15 and 15 Pro, they're going to appeal to people who've had an iPhone for like 4 or 5 years. If you're rocking an iPhone 11 or a 12 or even a 10, then the iPhone 15 is going to seem like an absolute dream because it is way different to those previous models. And normally what we find, yes, those prices are high and they are more expensive than last year, but what I find, and from my readers and listeners, that they decide that they will invest in the technology. So if they're going to buy the iPhone 15, they're going to hang on to it for 4 or 5 years. So this isn't something that they're going to buy this year and then upgrade a year later. Most users who are attracted to these new devices have probably had the same iPhone for several years, and once they do purchase the new iPhone 15 or the 15 Pro, they're going to hang on to it for some time to come. So that's it. That's our iPhone 15, iPhone 15 Plus, iPhone 15 Pro and iPhone 15 Pro Max review. We've given you the top features, our thoughts on those features. If you want to read even more an in-depth review of all the phones, you can do that, of course, at our website, techguide.com.au. Thanks for watching.